Hey everyone, today we are going to talk about opposites and absolute value. Opposites are numbers that are the same distance from zero in opposite directions. So 1 and -1, 2 and -2. So these would be opposites of each other. We're all familiar with opposites. Now we're just adding a numerical value to them. Absolute value is the distance between a number and zero on the number line. And it looks like this. So we're going to draw these absolute value bars, and I'm going to put a number on the inside. And I'm going to say, okay, how far away from 0 is 3? Well, it's 1, 2, 3 units. So the absolute value of 3 is 3. If I do the same thing for -3, so here's -3, I'm still 1, 2, 3 units away from 0. So the absolute value of -3 is also +3. Excuse my dog in the background. A very easy way to remember this idea that these things are going to come out positive is that distance cannot be negative. So whether I'm walking forward or I'm walking backward, I am still covering a positive distance. So distance cannot be negative. So when you're finding the absolute value, it should come out positive because you're counting the number of units away from 0 that you are. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to be finding opposites. And we're going to talk about how we write them mathematically and then how we evaluate them. So the opposite of -5 is going to be written as the opposite of -5. So this represents opposite, and then this is the -5. Okay. So this one, the opposite of 7, is going to be written as the opposite of 7. So again, this first negative sign means the word opposite. So when it says find the opposite of -5, the opposite of -5 is +5. The opposite of 7 is -7. Number 3, now I'm just giving you that mathematical representation of it. So this is opposite, and then this is -15. So I'm going to read this as, what is the opposite of -15? The opposite of -15 is +15. Now, the opposite of 0 is just going to be 0 because there is no opposite of 0. 0 is not positive or negative. Number 5, this is the opposite of -10. So the opposite of -10 is +10. And then this is the opposite of 12, which is going to be -12. Now we're going to add another layer. So it says finding opposite of opposites. So think of each opposite as a new negative symbol. So this is a negative and this is a negative. So I'm going to have the opposite of the opposite of 2. And I use the parentheses to help me distinguish between the negative signs. They don't all just look like one big negative. So this is my first opposite. This is my second opposite. And then I've got +2 all the way on the inside. The next one, again, think of this as a negative and this is a negative, and then I have a -7. So the opposite of the opposite of -7. So now I'm going to write them out and actually evaluate them. So the opposite of 10. And then you evaluate from the inside out. So I'm going to start in here. The opposite of 10 is -10. And then the opposite of -10 is +10. The opposite of -8. And I'm going to start all the way on the inside. So the opposite of -8 is +8. So this is the opposite of 8. And the opposite of 8 is -8. What you should notice is that when you have a pair, it comes out positive. When you have 3 negatives, it comes out as a negative again. So this one, the opposite of negative 75 is positive 75. Well, the opposite of a positive 75 is back to a negative 75. And then here, the opposite of a positive is going to be a negative, and the opposite of a negative is going back to a positive. So those double opposites are kind of tricky. Our next example is absolute value. Remember that absolute value is the distance from 0 on the number line. So I'm going to draw a little number line up here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So here's negative 4. If I start at negative 4, I am 1, 2, 3, 4 units away from 0. So the absolute value of negative 4 is 4. Here I'm going to be 8 units away from 0, and here I'm going to be 0 units away from 0. The last thing that we're going to talk about is how to apply opposites and absolute value to real-world situations, so finding the distance between two things. We sort of did this when we did the Into the Arctic activity. You guys were able to use the number line to kind of help you, and we're going to do something similar here, but we're not going to draw a full number line. So this says a seagull is flying 25 feet above sea level, and Tony is diving 15 feet below sea level. So I'm going to draw some water. And then I'm going to draw a bird in the sky. There's my bird. And then I'm going to draw Tony swimming down here. Okay, so there's Tony swimming. They don't have to be beautiful pictures. They just have to serve my purpose. And it says a seagull is flying 25 feet above sea level, and that Tony is diving 15 feet below sea level. So he's down at negative 15 feet. And I want to know, what is the distance between Tony and the seagull? Well, I have to go the 25 feet down to the water, and then I have to go the 15 feet down to Tony. So I'm going to do 25 plus 15, and I get 40 feet. Number 15, I'm going to draw a little bit different picture. I'm actually going to draw it as more of a number line. So here's 0. So it says Anna has negative 10 points in a video game. So here's negative 5, here's negative 10, and her friend has 12. So 5, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So here's her 12 points, and here's her negative 10 points. So Anna is 10 points away from 0. And her friend is 12 points away from 0. So they are 10 plus 12, which is 22 points away from each other. So when one is above and one is below, I'm adding those two distances together. In number 16, it says Jalen is swimming 20 feet below sea level. So here's Jalen. And he's 20 feet below sea level. So he's down here at negative 20 feet. And he swims upwards towards a fish that is at negative 8 feet below sea level. So Jalen is at negative 20. So he's 20 feet away from 0. And the fish is 8 feet away from 0, and he's swimming up to that fish. So I'm going to do 20 minus 8, and I get 12 feet. So he swam 12 feet up towards the fish. Number 17 is going to be on the other side of 0. So here's the ground. And it says an eagle is soaring in the sky 100 feet above sea level. So here's my eagle all the way up here at 100 feet. And he spots a tree So here's my tree with the perfect branch at 58 feet above sea level. And I want to know how far down does the eagle have to fly to get to that branch. So I'm going to do 100 minus 58, and I get 42 feet. So when they are on the same side of 0, whether they are plus or minus, I'm taking those positive numbers and I'm subtracting to find the distance between the two of them.